There are stories we hear, and then there are stories that change the way we see life forever. Today, you will hear one of those stories. It's about a man who turned failure into fuel, rejection into rebirth, and death into the ultimate teacher. His name was Steve Jobs, and the 3 lessons from his journey can transform yours. Welcome back to Greatest Lane, the place where we fuel your journey with the wisdom of the greatest. Today's story is not just about computers, not just about business, it's about life. Steve Jobs once said to graduates at Stanford, "I don't have a grand speech. I just want to tell you 3 stories from my life." But those 3 stories hold the power to reshape anyone's future. First story, connecting the dots. Our first lesson begins with a story you might think you know, but its true meaning is often missed. It's the story of Steve Jobs, and it starts not with a triumph, but with what the world universally labels as failure. He was accepted into the prestigious Reed College, a path that seemed paved with promise and societal approval. It was the dream, the checklist item for a successful life. Yet, after just 6 months, he made a decision that baffled everyone. He dropped out. To his parents, who had saved for years, and to a society that worships linear progression, it looked like a catastrophic dead end. A waste of potential. But for Jobs, the real failure wasn't leaving. The real failure would have been staying. It was the terrifying realization that he was on a path that felt hollow, a path prescribed by others that had no connection to his own inner compass. Dropping out wasn't an act of giving up on his future. It was an act of profound courage. It was his first defiant step toward claiming his own life, toward true, unscripted freedom. Freed from the rigid structure of required courses, he became what he called a drop-in. This period was defined by a stark contrast. On the surface, he was destitute, sleeping on the floor of friends' rooms, returning Coke bottles for food money, walking 7 miles across town every Sunday for a good meal at the Hare Krishna temple. By any conventional measure, he was struggling. But beneath that surface, he was intellectually richer than ever before. Unshackled from a syllabus, he was finally able to follow the whispers of his own intuition. He was guided not by graduation requirements, but by a voracious and genuine fascination with the world around him. This period of unstructured, self-directed exploration wasn't a detour from his education, it was the real beginning of it. He was learning how to learn, how to be curious, and how to listen to his own interests above the noise of expectation. One of those whispers of curiosity led him to a campus poster for a calligraphy class. In a world obsessed with practicality, with STEM fields and career-oriented majors, this seemed like a profoundly useless pursuit. It promised no job, no tangible return on investment, but he was captivated. He dove in, learning about serif and sans serif typefaces, about the art of varying the space between letter combinations, about the subtle dance of form and negative space that makes great typography beautiful. He fell in love with the history, the artistry, and the elegance of it. It was an education in beauty for beauty's sake, an endeavor driven by nothing more than pure fascination. He was collecting a dot, with no idea how or if it would ever connect to anything else in his life. It was simply learning for the love of it, an act of faith in his own curiosity. A decade passed, 10 years, an eternity in the world of technology. Jobs, now a visionary leader, was in the midst of creating a machine that would change the world, the first Macintosh. As he and his team were designing the computer's interface, it all came flooding back. While other computers of the era were cold, utilitarian, and spoke in harsh, mono-spaced, all-caps text, Jobs remembered the beauty and grace of calligraphy. He remembered the art of communication. He insisted, against the arguments of pure pragmatists, that the Mac have multiple typefaces and proportionally spaced fonts. That useless class, that impractical detour, became the very soul of the machine. It was the detail that made the Macintosh feel human, friendly, and accessible. It gave the world its first personal computer with beautiful typography, and in doing so, it democratized design. Without that waste of time, that seemingly random dot he collected a decade earlier, our entire digital landscape, from the websites we browse to the apps on our phones, would feel sterile, impersonal, and lifeless. That one decision, born from a moment of pure curiosity, shaped the aesthetic of the modern world. And this brings us to the first, and perhaps most important lesson of this journey. You cannot connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backward. This is a profound truth about life. We are conditioned to crave a roadmap, a step-by-step plan from A to B. But life is rarely, if ever, a straight line. It's a messy, unpredictable, and often confusing collection of experiences. So, you have to trust in something. Trust your gut, your destiny, your life, your karma, whatever. You have to trust that the dots, the seemingly random events and choices, will somehow connect in your future. So what does this mean for you right now in your life? It means reframing your past and present. That class you think is pointless, the job that feels like a dead end, the project that failed, the relationship that ended in heartbreak, even the struggles you're facing at this very moment, they are all dots. They are not mistakes. They are not evidence of your failure. They are the raw materials of your future self. They are the experiences preparing you for something you can't yet see. Each one is a lesson in resilience, a piece of unique knowledge, a stroke of empathy added to your character. Believing that the dots will connect down the road will give you the confidence to follow your heart, even when it leads you off the well-worn path. It's the faith that allows you to take the calligraphy class of your own life. So ask yourself, what are the most significant dots in my past? What did they teach me? And more importantly, what curiosity am I ignoring today because it seems impractical? Are you willing to trust the process, to collect interesting dots without an immediate promise of reward, and have faith that one day you'll look back and see a masterpiece? This trust in the journey leads us directly to our second story, love and loss. Our second story begins with a modern myth. It starts, as legends do, in a garage. But this wasn't just a workshop. It was an incubator for a revolution. It was Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, two friends with a shared radical vision that the personal computer could be more than a tool for hobbyists. It could change the world. From those humble beginnings, a cultural phenomenon was born. In just a decade, Apple exploded. It wasn't just about building computers, it was about building a brand, an identity, a tribe of believers. By the time Jobs was 30, he was the charismatic mercurial leader of a $2 billion empire with over 4,000 employees. He was on top of the world, the living embodiment of the Silicon Valley dream. And then, the dream shattered. In a move that would become legendary in the annals of business, Steve Jobs was fired. Think about that for a second. He was exiled from the kingdom he had built with his own hands. The fall was as swift as the rise was meteoric. The boardroom battle was a clash of titans, a power struggle between the visionary founder and the professional CEO he himself had recruited, John Sculley. Jobs, known for his demanding and often abrasive style, had made enemies. The very people he had hired, the board he had assembled, turned against him. It wasn't a quiet departure. It was a brutal public coup, splashed across the headlines of every major newspaper. The visionary was cast out. It was a devastating, humiliating, and very public failure. Imagine the sheer gut-wrenching humiliation, the sting of rejection from your own creation, the profound heartbreak of being betrayed by those you trusted. The focus of his entire adult life, the company that was so inextricably linked with his own identity, was suddenly gone. For months, he was adrift in a sea of confusion and despair. He became the poster child for spectacular failure, a cautionary tale whispered in boardrooms across the country. He confessed to feeling like he had let the previous generation of entrepreneurs down, that he had dropped the baton as it was being passed to him. The weight of what he had built, and then so publicly lost, was a crushing burden. He seriously considered fleeing Silicon Valley, leaving the world of technology behind forever. Who could blame him? The world had watched him fly too close to the sun, and now it was watching him fall. But in that darkness, a flicker of something unexpected began to glow. Instead of breaking, he began again. It wasn't an overnight transformation. It was a slow, painful, and deeply personal process of rediscovery. He later described this period with a profound realization. The crushing heaviness of being successful was replaced by the lightness of being a beginner again. Think about the freedom in that idea. The pressure to uphold a legacy, to meet quarterly earnings, to manage thousands of people. it all vanished. He was no longer the CEO of Apple. He was just Steve, a guy who loved building things. The failure had stripped him of his title, his company, and his public persona, but in doing so, it had given him an incredible gift, a clean slate. He discovered that beneath the layers of ego and success, the core passion was still there, burning brightly. He still loved the work. He loved the process of creation, the challenge of solving complex problems, the magic of turning an idea into a tangible product. That love, that intrinsic fire, that was the one thing the boardroom couldn't take from him. So he channeled that fire into new ventures. He founded Next, a company that was, by all accounts, years ahead of its time. Freed from the commercial constraints of a massive corporation like Apple, he pursued pure, unadulterated innovation. Next computers were beautiful, powerful, and incredibly expensive. A commercial failure in the short term, but a technological masterpiece. The object-oriented software developed at Next was so revolutionary that it would later become the very foundation for Apple's modern operating systems. It was a bold, almost reckless gamble on the future, a secret weapon being forged in exile. At the same time, he acquired a small computer graphics division from Lucasfilm and spun it out as an independent company. That company was Pixar. Here, he saw a different kind of magic, the intersection of technology and storytelling. While others saw computer animation as a cold, sterile medium, Jobs saw its potential for art. He invested his own money, betting on a small team of brilliant artists and engineers who dreamed of making the world's first computer-animated feature film. That dream became a film that didn't just make money, it revolutionized an entire industry and changed the way we tell stories forever. And then, in a twist of fate so perfect it feels like fiction, the story came full circle. A decade after his ousting, Apple was on the brink of bankruptcy. The company had lost its way, its innovation had stalled, and it was hemorrhaging money. In a desperate move to save itself, Apple bought Next for its advanced operating system. And with that acquisition, they brought back the one person who could save them, Steve Jobs. He returned to the company he had lost, but he wasn't the same man who had left. The brash, impulsive young founder was gone. In his place stood a leader forged in the crucible of failure. His time in the wilderness had taught him invaluable lessons. He had learned patience from the long-term bets at Next. He had learned the power of storytelling and collaboration from Pixar. Most importantly, he had learned humility. This new perspective, this blend of visionary passion and hard-won wisdom, was exactly what Apple needed. It allowed him to lead the company not just back from the brink, but to its greatest and most iconic heights. The second act was even more spectacular than the first. This brings us to the second great lesson, a truth that beats at the very heart of Jobs' story. The only way to do truly great work is to love what you do. Your work is going to fill a large part of your life, and the only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work. And the only way to do great work is to love what you do. If you haven't found it yet, keep looking. Don't settle. As with all matters of the heart, you'll know when you find it. Settling is a quiet poison. It's the comfortable job you don't care about, the career path you chose to please someone else, the good enough that slowly erodes your soul. Don't let the noise of others' opinions, their expectations, their definitions of success, drown out your own inner voice. That voice, that intuition, is your most reliable compass. The search for what you love is not a distraction from your life, it's your life. The process of trying things, of failing, of learning what ignites your curiosity and what leaves you cold, that is the journey. It's what keeps you engaged, growing, and alive. Because when you find that love for your craft, it becomes an unshakable foundation. It's the fuel that will carry you through the inevitable rejections, the painful failures, and the lonely moments when the entire world seems to doubt you. When you love the work itself, the external validation becomes secondary. The joy is in the doing. So I ask you to think about your own life right now. What is it that you truly love? What makes you lose track of time? What problem do you enjoy solving for its own sake? Are you actively chasing that feeling, or are you settling for a life that is simply fine? The answer to that question could change everything. This relentless pursuit of passion leads us directly to the final and perhaps most powerful realization. Third story, death. This brings us to the third and perhaps most transformative story from Job's life, a story about death. He revealed that for years, his day began not with emails or news, but with a profound ritual. Every single morning, he would look his own reflection in the eye and ask a stark, clarifying question. If today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I am about to do today? This wasn't a fleeting, morbid thought. It was a deliberate daily practice, a mental whetstone against which he sharpened his purpose. He confessed that if the answer was no for too many days in a row, he didn't just feel a vague sense of dissatisfaction. He recognized it as an undeniable signal, a blaring alarm that something fundamental in his life was misaligned and had to change. It was his personal system for course correction. That single question acted as a powerful filter. It stripped away the non-essential, cutting through the deafening noise of daily life, the endless obligations, the expectations of others, the trivial distractions that masquerade as urgent. This practice is a modern application of an ancient Stoic philosophy. Remember, you must die. The Stoics didn't dwell on death to be grim, they used it as a tool to create priority and meaning. They knew that remembering our mortality is the secret weapon against the slow creep of complacency. It forces you to stop sleepwalking through your days and ask, is this it? Is this what I want my finite time to be spent on? This daily confrontation with his own finitude forced Jobs to constantly evaluate if his actions were in true alignment with his deepest values and grandest ambitions. And so, the lesson becomes clear. We cannot afford to live someone else's dream. We can't allow ourselves to be trapped by what he famously called dogma, which he defined as living with the results of other people's thinking. This dogma isn't just some grand political or religious doctrine. It's the subtle, inherited script we're handed, the shoulds and ought tos from our family, our culture, our peers. You should choose a safe career. You should follow the traditional path. Jobs urged us to resist this. He pleaded, don't let the noise of others' opinions drown out your own inner voice. But how do you hear that voice? It requires creating space. It means disconnecting from the external chatter and connecting with your internal compass. It means having the immense courage to not just hear, but to your heart and intuition. They, as he believed, somehow already know what you truly want to become. This brings us to his most profound and actionable insight. Lesson 3. Remembering that you are going to die is the best tool you will ever have for making the big choices in life. Think of it as the ultimate filter. When you pour your life, your worries, your ambitions, your fears, through the filter of your own mortality, almost everything that is not essential simply washes away. What's left behind is the pure, unvarnished truth of what truly matters to you. It clarifies your purpose in a way nothing else can. Why is this so effective? Because in the face of death, fear loses its power. Almost everything we worry about, all external expectations, all pride, all fear of embarrassment or failure, these things become laughably small. The fear of what your colleagues might think if you change careers, it falls away. The fear of looking foolish if your new venture doesn't succeed, it evaporates. The pride that keeps you in a situation you know is wrong, it dissolves. In that moment of clarity, you are liberated. You are suddenly free to pursue what truly calls to you. Bronnie Ware, a palliative care nurse who recorded the dying's most common regrets, found that the number one regret was, I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. Remembering death gives you that courage it's too late. It grants you permission to take the necessary risks, to love deeply, to create boldly, and to live a life that leaves no room for the bitter taste of regret. So I ask you right now, to pause and ask yourself that same question. If today were your last day on earth, would you be proud of how you've lived? Would you be content with what you are about to do today? If the answer is no, even a quiet no, listen to it. Don't wait for a better time. Don't wait for next Monday, or next month, or next year. The right time is a myth. The only time you have is now. As Jobs concluded, death is very likely the single best invention of life. It is life's change agent. It clears out the old to make way for the new. It's the force that ensures progress. that demands urgency, that makes your time here so precious. It's not a curse, it's a catalyst. So use it. Let the knowledge of your limited time be the fuel that powers you toward a life of purpose, passion, and authenticity. Don't just live, live deliberately. Jobs closed his speech with 4 words that became his legacy: stay hungry, stay foolish. To stay hungry means never settling, never losing your fire. To stay foolish means daring to dream big, even when people laugh. And here's the truth. Every great story, including yours, is built on these 2 principles. So wherever you are today, starting small, facing rejection, or battling fear, remember Steve Jobs' journey. Connect your dots. Love what you do. Live with urgency. Because greatness isn't born. It's built by those who dare to stay hungry and stay foolish. If Steve Jobs' story lit a fire inside you, subscribe to Greatest Lane. This is where the greatest lessons become your fuel to win. Don't just watch stories, live them. If Steve Jobs' story lit a fire inside you, subscribe to Greatest Lane. We're a community dedicated to your success. Here, the greatest lessons become your fuel to win. Don't just watch these stories, go out and live them.